Hello everybody, welcome to the first episode of Footy SA with John Casey, your one-stop SANFL shop, all the news, views and opinions you need, and also covering other areas of football in South Australia. I've got the best man with me for the job, Andrew Capel, leading journalist for the Adelaide Advertiser. Andrew, great to have you here. Tell us what caught your eye over the first round of the SANFL.
Good to be with you, Case. Max Beattie, Woodville-West Torrens, upset to some degree South Adelaide, celebrating the 150th anniversary this year at Noarlunga. In round one, Beattie took the game over by himself. He kicked 5 goals, had 30 disposals, played a bit of midfield, but mainly forward. He was electric. And Chris Burgess, obviously last week, just before round one, Burgess was going to play at Baskerville in the York Peninsula Football League. A job becomes available at West Adelaide, footy manager's job, signs full-time there, plays his first game in several years for West Adelaide, his old club, against his former AFL club, the Crows, kicks 5 goals, including 4 in the first half, and then goes down back in the last quarter when the Crows are coming hard and saves the game for the Blood. So 2 really good storylines from individual players in round one.
Good storyline from the coach as well, Nathan Bassett, back at West Adelaide with the first up win. Absolutely amazing. I tell you, I was at Port Adelaide, and I've got to say, Matt Allen from Glenelg, he's been top 8 in the best and fairest there for the last 5 years, and we know what he's like, state player. He absolutely killed those Port Adelaide listed players. How he hasn't played an AFL game ever is beyond me. He's good enough, he's smart enough. There was one instance there where he dispossessed one of the Port Adelaide players, then ran off him, and then went back and got the ball again before the Port Adelaide player had even seen what was going on. He's just a cut above. We're lucky to have him in the SANFL, that's for sure. He's
a SANFL superstar, there's no doubt about that. Spent a couple of years on West Coast list. He was recruited, he's from Mount Gambier, Glenelg's great southeast recruiting country zone. Spent a couple of years on the Eagles list. They recruited him as a forward. He moved into the midfield a little bit, played really well in the waffle, didn't play an AFL game, unfortunately. Has come back to Glenelg, absolute superstar. And the Bay's going to need him more than ever this year, given the fact they've lost half a dozen dual premiership players in the off-season. They're rebuilding to some degree under their new coach, Matty Clark. So he needs to stand up, and that was a really positive sign from Glenelg in round one.
Let's have a look at the scores from round one, and we got underway there with, I think, 3 games decided by 7 points or less. And I think the other important thing to point out is that 3 teams that missed finals last year won in the opening round. So that's really good as well. But some good wins and certainly some heartbreak for Central District, and South Adelaide has some work to do. But we'll go through the games individually. We kick off Friday night at the Parade, Sturt winning by 5 points against a brave Norwood who fought back well.
It's going to be very even competition. There's not a lot between a lot of the teams. But I think Sturt and Norwood are the 2 standouts. Sturt last year obviously lost the 1 game. Norwood went within a goal of making the preliminary final. Of course, the Tristan Binder kicked late in the game, was a behind. And if they kicked the goal, they're playing Sturt in the grand final. Recruited really well, Harry Boyd, Kate Dittmar from Central District, Aaron Francis from Sydney. They're going to take a little bit of time to gel. Thought Norwood would get Sturt first up because Sturt have got a few injuries. Mitch Croden's still coming back from a knee reco last year. Casey Voss missed the game, and they're playing a few of their kids. They've got great depth, of course. For Sturt to win that game at the Parade sends a real message to the rest of the competition that we're not going anywhere. Again, Norwood didn't lose too much. They came hard in the last quarter. So I think they're the best 2 teams. That might be a precursor to what we see end of the season.
First game could be the last game of the season as well between those 2 teams. You mentioned the cream rising to the top for Sturt. Lewis, 29 disposals, 13 tackles, 8 clearances. Will Snelling, 25 disposals, 20 tackles, 152 ranking points. But the one that stood out for me from Sturt was Amos Doyle, 47 hitouts to 30 from Harry Boyd. That's a big statement.
Amazing effort. I know our Tizer journo that covered that game gave Snelling and Lewis the best 2 players on the ground. Of course, Lewis won the McBean medal last year, Snelling the year before, tied with Harry Boyd. So they'll be in contention again this year.
And you mentioned Kate Dittmar, 23 disposals, 13 tackles, 7 clearances. He's going to be a great pickup from Central District. We'll move on to the game at Richmond that we've mentioned. West Adelaide winning by 7 points against the Adelaide Crows. The corresponding game last year, West Adelaide lost by 95 points and were goalless at 3/4 time. So credit to Nathan Bassett and everyone at Richmond for what they've turned around there at Westies.
Mate, I covered that first game last year and we were searching for the record books during the game. When was the last time a team didn't kick a goal in a match? Obviously, they kicked a couple late, but magnificent effort from Nathan Bassett. I've spoken to him several times in the pre-season. He's been very optimistic about turning West Adelaide around. He signed for 3 years. It's going to be a long-term plan. But they've got most of their players in the park this year. Last year, a lot of injuries, and you bring in some experience, and Chris Burgess really was the icing on the cake. He settled them down, gave them more potency in attack, settled them down back late in the game. And I really like what Westies are doing. They do have a long-term plan. They missed out on a few recruits they were trying to get in the off-season. They went to more successful clubs. But Bass said, we're not going to throw money and waste money on players that aren't going to be difference makers. If we can't get them this year, we'll hold that money for next year. And that's a very positive sign, first up for the Bloods.
And I think what underscores the Chris Burgess recruiting is the fact that the last time those two sides played, round 14 last season, Burgess kicked 4 for the Adelaide Crows and helped them to a win. Now he's playing with West, he kicks 5 and helps them to a win. So really good performance from then, and a real start with a bang for Nathan Bassett. But Koby Ryan, 30 disposals, 8 clearances. I think he's going to be high up in McGarry medal voting again. And for the Adelaide Crows, Billy Dowling, 37 disposals, 7 clearances, 6 tackles. Blake Drury was good with 4 goals. Riley O'Brien, 20 disposals, 32 hit-outs, 7 clearances and a goal. So they had a lot of players who did well, 12 AFL-listed players, but I think that might have just taken the wind out of their sails a little bit, losing to West Adelaide. They wouldn't have anticipated that.
They've got a quick backup this week. They've got Woodville-West Torrens, who are very good against South Adelaide, playing at Woodville on Thursday night. So a quick backup. May have to leave a player or two out on standby for the AFL game against Fremantle on Friday night as well.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. Let's get to the Eagles down at South Adelaide. They win by 52 points. They missed the finals last year. We know they had horrendous injuries, but that's a very promising start for Sam Jacobs and the Eagles.
Fantastic. We expected more from South. They were disappointing. In fairness to South, they've copped a couple of big blows. Yeah. Will Verrill, their standout recruit from Melbourne, the ruckman, he got injured in the last trial game, suffered a torn ACL, so will undergo a knee reco, out for the year. That's thrown him around as far as the system is concerned, because Oliver Northern was going to play as the key forward. He had to do the main rucking. And Sam Skinner, who's going to play as their main key forward this year, suffered a fractured cheekbone. He was out of the game early. So that hurt South, no doubt. But the great thing about the Eagles, apart from those players you spoke about coming back into the side, and they're very impressive, led by Max Beattie, who played half-back last year. He's moved back into the midfield forward role this year. Ethan Grace from the North Shore Bombers in New South Wales, outstanding. Harper Montgomery, the son of Brett Montgomery, the Port Premiership player. I saw Brett in the rooms after the game. He was excellent as well. And young Jack Cook, who was unlucky not to be drafted in the off-season, played in SA's under-18 championship winning side last year, played mainly wing. He was terrific. He racked up 27 touches and had 11 marks. So apart from those senior players being back in the team, the young players and some of the new boys were outstanding as well. So that's really good signs for the Eagles.
And did Riley Knight say that Max Beattie might win the McGarry medal?
He mentioned that at the season launch last week, didn't he? All the captains were asked their McGarry medal for the tip, and they trotted out the usual names: Lewis, Snelling, Boyd, these blokes. And then Riley Knight said, I'm going to throw one at you. Max Beattie. And everyone sort of stood back and thought, what are you talking about? We know he's a good player, but is he a McGarry medal contender? His pre-season's been fantastic, and what we saw on the weekend, there's no doubt he would have got the votes. Yeah,
well, let's hope that South Adelaide can, build, because they had 100 less disposals than the Eagles. They just weren't in the frame there at any stage. And as you mentioned, those injuries are a real problem for them. Oscar Clavarino, 19 disposals, 10 marks, was a pillar of strength for them.
I like Harley Sparks, actually. He's a WA recruit. He went to half-back and played very well.
We'll go at the Ponderosa, North Adelaide and Central District. The Roosters getting a win first up for Josh Francou at ex-Convenience Oval by 5 points. Came from nowhere. The Dogs let one slip there.
34 points down North Adelaide in the third quarter. And they're in a little bit of a rebuilding pattern as well. They've lost a few experienced players in the past couple of years. New coach, Josh Francou, obviously. That's a fantastic win for North Adelaide. What that does for your group moving forward as far as confidence is concerned is outstanding. His own son, Oliver Francou, played on the wing, had 29 touches, outstanding performance. So that was a real positive for them, not so much for Central. We don't lose a 6-goal lead at home. They've lost a few players in the off-season. Brett Montgomery went to play in the Mildura League. Kay Dittmar, as you mentioned, went to Norwood. So they're 2 key players that are out. And I think Central will be very competitive this year, but I've got question marks over whether they'll play finals.
And that loss really hurts. These early wins, you can build a platform from that. So they'll be disappointed with that. Mitch Harvey, 4 goals straight and the sealer.
Mitch Harvey.
He just continues to get it done.
And you know what? He kicked the winning goal. If there's one player in that, probably in the league, that you want kicking for your life, 40 out, from a set shot with a game on the line, it's probably Mitch Harvey, and he nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Ethan East kicked 4 goals. Harry Grant, 20 disposals, 5 clearance. They had 5 club debutants. So, you cut Central District some slack, but as you say, they're a work in progress. The tackle count 60 to 49 and being 4 goals up at 3/4 time where you think you get across the line, but it wasn't to be. And the last game we're going to look at, I was down at Alberton to see Glenelg play Port Adelaide. They won by 47 points. They were super impressive, Glenelg, and picked up where they left off last year, despite all the changes that have happened there.
And Ollie Wines, of course, starred for Port Adelaide. Controversy whether he should have been over in the AFL team against West Coast. They picked Will Brodie ahead of him. So he'll be back, obviously, next weekend. But, Glenelg, terrific performance. There's always a danger game out Alberton. And the 2 key forwards stood up, Liam McBean and Lachie Hosie. Both kicked 4 goals, and you were there. Lachie Hosie spent a bit of time in the midfield as well, just giving Glenelg a new dynamic. Yeah,
I asked him about it post-game for Channel 7, and he was a little non-committal. He said, the coach thinks this is more of an idea than I do, but we'll see how it unfolds. I think he likes being close to goal. But, the 1-2 punch, even without Luke Reynolds, the 3-headed monster is now 2. But Nick Stevens played forward, kicked his first goal at SANFL level, and looked certainly not out of place there. McBean 4 goals, including a goal of the week contender, and we'll see that on Channel 7 on Wednesday night. Cam McGregor was great, 21 hit-outs, 7 clearances. Port Adelaide had a lot of the ball. They had 382 disposals. Now, champion data, I know when you're dealing in a lot of numbers, sometimes you can get some that don't make sense, and they had them at 80% disposal efficiency, and I reckon it was closer to 40 because they burnt the ball. Tim Ginniver, the co-commentator with us on 7, he was pulling his hair out because they were doing good stuff and then turning the ball over and giving it straight back to Glenelg. So I'm not quite sure about that. The inside 50 count, Port had more, and yet after half time, they were never in the frame. I think Ollie Lord's a long way from where he needs to be. Took some good grabs, but couldn't finish off his work. And Port Adelaide, Glenelg's best players, made them look second rate. So Jacob Surgeon, now back in charge at Port Adelaide's optimistic where they're going, but they've certainly got some work to do.
Well, the injuries at AFL, when that happens, obviously, it falls back onto your SANFL team. So the success of Adelaide and Port Adelaide are largely determined by how many players you've got on your injury list at both levels. So great win for Glenelg though. They're going through a big rebuilding program under first year SANFL coach Matty Clark as well. 6 debutants donned the black and gold on the weekend. A couple of them played really well. Remy Brown, I think, kicked a couple of goals.
Look good.
So the changing of the guard there, but a really good win for them first up.
Yeah, Tigers will be happy with that. I think Will Patton from West Adelaide, Joel Tearley from Sturt did a good job as well. So they're certainly looking okay at the moment, the Tigers, and we're going to find out a little bit more about them in round 2. Let's cast our minds forward to round 2, as you mentioned earlier. Starts on Thursday night, the Eagles against the Crows under lights. And, well, the Eagles with a win, the Crows with a loss, so the Eagles will be feeling good about themselves.
It's hard to know what team they're going to play each week. Historically, if Adelaide or Port have 15 or 16 AFL players, they rarely lose. Below that, the State League team has a much better chance. But just what I saw on the weekend with the Eagles and the Crows having to probably keep 1 or 2 players out for the Friday night game against Fremantle, I think the Eagles might get the chockies.
Good Friday football, always a feature of the SANFL. Absolutely love it. Channel 7's game going to be Glenelg against Norwood. So that's 2 of the heavyweights.
A cracker, and these 2 always play close games. Glenelg normally win the game at the Bay. I've got Norwood rated more highly this year, so I think the legs will bounce back in what will be a crackerjack contest. Yeah,
get down there if you can, and if you can't, join us on Channel 7 for our game of the week. West Adelaide against Central District, so West coming off a win. The Dogs, well, that's a tough matchup for them after losing a game they should have won in round 1.
How do you pick winners? Even last week, I don't think I did very well in the tips, but West is, you don't normally pick West Adelaide in your tips, given they've, haven't made the final since their last flag in 2015, but I like what they're doing. Still some question marks over Central, so I'm going to pick West.
What about South Adelaide against Port Adelaide? Someone's going to be 0-2, and that's not the start of the season either of them want.
Oh, it's going to be tough, isn't it? And South need a win, as we said. It's their 150th anniversary this year. They're launching their history book at the club also on Saturday, so there'll be a lot of past players there. So it's a big day for the Panthers. hard to pick, isn't it? Who do you think is going to win that game?
I think South Adelaide, only because I saw Port Adelaide and was far from impressed by them. And as you say, when you've got past players there and a big event there, and South Adelaide are probably a lot better than they showed, how they navigate the injury crisis so early in the season is going to be interesting. But maybe the Panthers just for me. And the last game, North Adelaide against Sturt, someone's going to be 2-0. So at the other end of the scale.
I really like what North Adelaide did on the weekend. I like what Josh Francou's doing with the group as well, but it's hard to pick against Sturt.
Just on Josh Francou, the entire build-up in the pre-season, the way he's interacted with the media, with the club members more importantly, and their fan base has been outstanding. The emails he's sent out, the updates he's sent out, the projections that he's given. Don't get carried away. This is a work in progress. Yep. So professional. Having him, Nathan Bassett, Matty Clark back in the SANFL is a massive boost for the competition. It's the best state league in Australia, and that proves it when those guys come back and make it even better. Yeah,
no question. You can argue the coaching this year is as good as it's ever been, hasn't it? All those AFL experienced players coming back into the system. And as you said, they're not only doing the job on the field, but they've been fantastic off field as well. So it's great for the competition.
Now we're going to finish each episode with Over the Fence. If you would like to get involved, we'd love to have your feedback as well. So put your comments below and like and subscribe our podcast, and that'll help us along as well. And we want your involvement. So whether it's something to do with football, it might be something to do with country football in South Australia, could be another sport, doesn't really matter, but get in touch. We'd love to have your feedback. And the one I wanted to point out this week, Andy, was seeing Taylor Walker, Riley Thilthorpe, Josh Rochelle, and an Olympic gold medalist, Kyle Chalmers, jumping up and down at the Adelaide 36ers grand final game 2, celebrating with them. And I thought, isn't that fantastic to see elite sportsmen able to celebrate a completely different sport and be caught up in the moment? They looked like they'd won the premiership.
Yeah, that was outstanding. And just a day after they'd lost the game in Geelong as well, which was a tough loss to the Crows. So it was great that they support another sporting team from South Australia. And you're right, they wore the Sixers jerseys and they loved every minute of it, didn't they? It's fantastic.
Fantastic to have you on board as well. Trust
Pleasure.
you, and we'll look forward to that next week. As I say, get in touch. I think I just heard the final siren. So that's it for episode 1 of Footy SA with John Casey. Join us again and have a good week.